Yes, but will it have rules for super large swords? What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live from the world of Final Fantasy on this cloudy, foggy Thursday morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning of the 21st day of September in the year of our Lord Steve the Cat, and there has been announced a Final Fantasy XIV tabletop role-playing game. Now, interesting story. They were not supposed to announce this yet. Apparently, from what we read last night, this was leaked last night around 4 o'clock my time, and then quickly removed, but not before people saw it and started to get excited. It wasn't supposed to be announced till like next week or the week after, from what I understand it. But yes, Square Enix and somebody else has decided to do a tabletop role-playing game based upon the Final Fantasy franchise, specifically Final Fantasy XIV, which is, I think, 15. That was the Final Fantasy MMO that was around for a while. It currently has 3 million active players. It's available on the PC, Mac, and whatever. So what do we know about this? We know that it's gonna be a game master's book, a player's book, 4 pre-generated characters. Sadly, no, Cloud is not one of them, or Sephiroth. Warrior, White Mage, Dragoon, Black Mage, a rules summary, a strategy guide, and counter maps. So it's your typical starter set, and the dice. This is now scheduled to be seen for around May 2024, and we could expect pre-orders to start around $60. Do you get an account for the MMO with this? No, but that would be an interesting way to sell it. Do you get the stat blocks for all the characters from Final Fantasy that are the most popular? You know, Chocobo and Cloud and Sephiroth and the others. I don't know. Don't know much about this. Is this something you're excited about? Are people going to be like, yes, finally, this is the tabletop role-playing game I've always wanted. I've always wanted to be able to play a Red Mage or Cloud or whatever in D&D. Or people going to be like, dude, Final Fantasy's been out forever, and Final Fantasy, the MMO's been out forever. It's a little too late to jump on the Final Fantasy tabletop role-playing game market. I'm sure there's a lot of unofficial homebrews, and maybe even some I gotta think this isn't the first time somebody's tried to do a Final Fantasy or Final Fantasy-esque tabletop role-playing game and almost make it to market, especially during the OGL worlds. So again, this is like, whenever you do a franchise like that, there's both the excitement of people who are finally being able to live out those fantasies in that world, but then there's also the, is it too late? Is there a market for this? I mean, I know there's, people who have said if you make X title into a tabletop role-playing game, it will, be the D&D killer or the number one, if you did Elder Scrolls, if you did blank, blank, blank. And there is some validity to that, but then there's also maybe it's too late. I mean, if I made an Elder Scrolls tabletop role-playing game now, or a Final Fantasy game now, would there really be any emphasis behind it for people to suddenly go rushing off and buy it, as opposed to all the people who have already just hacked Final Fantasy or Zelda or whatever to existing systems? It depends how much energy, I suppose, Square puts behind this. And again, the big story about this is not that they made this. The big story, of course, was that it was announced and they weren't supposed to announce it. And so now they're like, well, I guess we got to tell people we're making this. It was going to be a big surprise for the future, but oops, we messed up. So yeah, hey, guess what we're making, guys? Would you pay $60 plus shipping for a Final Fantasy tabletop role-playing game? Now, obviously, because it's Final Fantasy, if it needs to have rules for gigantic swords and mega summons and mega super effect attacks, because that's what is the main big sales of Final Fantasy besides the story. It's, Cloud and his gigantic sword that separates into several small swords. It's the summoning Baphomet, or whoever, and it's you cast your spell and suddenly the screen is filled with hundreds of meteors that do 6 points of damage, but it looks fucking cool. How do you translate super gigantic sword that is impossible to carry to tabletop role-playing game mechanics without and it just being and working in the tabletop role-playing game mechanics. Obviously, the world itself is infinitely explorable, just like any fantasy world, like that. Because, the world of Final Fantasy is huge and has multiple timelines, multiple levels of technology. So you could definitely run a campaign in that world without ever once running into Sephiroths or whoever. That's not the problem. It's just the problem of, can you capture the feel of the video game and what is instinctively ingrained in our minds that we associate with that video game, super large swords, etc., and then carry it over to tabletop role-playing games, and then give it the wheels that it needs, that it will still be able to be a marketable tabletop role-playing game once the initial 3-day excitement of a tabletop role-playing game based on Final Fantasy. Especially if you don't include any Final Fantasy merch with this. I mean, other than Final Fantasy themed dice, we're not really getting much in the way of merch, I mean, how much would it cost them to have tossed in a coupon for a free account to the MMO, or a couple stickers, or a poster, or the super deluxe extra special version comes with a Cloud Strife action figure or something, or an art book. If you're doing a tabletop role-playing game specifically based upon a video game franchise, especially something like Zelda or Final Fantasy that has very ingrained mythology associated with it, then you need to market that mythology. People aren't going to care about the system. They're going to want to know, can I emulate what my character in the video game does in the tabletop role-playing game? So that's a very, very, very high mark, to be able to do that, to transfer video game to table and get that same feeling. So that's going to be the judge, because otherwise, this, is there a market? Is this something people want to buy? Would you pay $60 for this game unless you were a diehard Final Fantasy fan and wanted to see if it emulated Final Fantasy? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. What are you thinking about this? Very excited about this? Do you care about this? Again, the big thing is that they released it and they weren't supposed to. At least they claim they weren't supposed to. Oops. Better take that off. But oh, look how people are excited about. I guess we better now officially announce it. So was it a mistake? Or did they do it on purpose? Let me know what you're thinking.